Is up? Welcome back to Tomahawk'd. We're on a new, slightly more baseball-themed set. There's more green, I guess. It's Wrigley Field-esque, I suppose. Not really any ivy at Truist, but
no. And also, we win baseball games.
True.
That is quite a bit different than what happens in Chicago.
I appreciate Wrigley Field because it's a lot like Ole Miss. It's a lot like the Grove. What happens inside the stadium, or I should say what happens on the playing field is less important than what happens in the seats and just outside the stadium,
Sure, yeah.
Which is just intense alcoholism.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. I appreciate a self-aware sports setup.
I'm fine with that logic, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely, I don't know if I would say a baseball mecca or anything like that, but it's definitely an experience that you should have as a sports fan.
Wrigley Field, or Wrigleyville, I should say.
Wrigleyville, yeah.
Yeah.
The entire area.
I mean, that's how, to me, football is, it's nice to have, a big tailgating area, usually a parking lot. Even if you, to look at Arrowhead Stadium, it's stupid. There's nothing. But, it's important that it's sort of barren because then you fill it up with what makes it fun. The Grove is the best of both worlds because it's picturesque, but it is like an empty park, and then you fill it up with people and blah, blah, blah. Baseball, and they're kind of doing this now with all the venues, they're kind of almost trying to imitate a mini Wrigleyville situation where they just open up a bar district next to all the stadiums. And that really is a direct play on Wrigleyville, which did it organically.
It's also a good move, generally speaking, to keep, they did it with, I hate this arm. They did it with Texas Live as well, has done a really good job there. I didn't know how it was going to be when it was under construction. I guess what was that 2019 when they started that shit for the new Ranger Stadium.
Yeah,
it wasn't obvious from the beginning how that was all going to work out, but they did a really good job. You can stay in that Lowe's hotel right there and never really go more than a mile away and see two different sports. I mean, if you go in the first week of September, you can see a baseball game, a college football game, and a pro football game all in the same weekend. So without ever leaving a mile radius, which is a pretty dope fucking situation.
And then there's still 20 restaurants and 20 bars, whatever. I mean, baseball's a pub sport to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The same way Premier League soccer, that type of shit. It's a pub sport. There's some sports are tailgating sports, some sports are pub sports. I don't know. Basketball's neither really, but it's fine. But yeah, I like Wrigleyville. I don't know where we were going with that tangent, but drinking is what I'm doing right now, and it's for good reason because the Braves dropped 2-3 to the Mets. Didn't look great doing it.
No, they look tired. They look like they're kind of.
This was their 22nd game in a row.
Yeah,
no off days or something like that. It's close to that.
Yeah, it kind of seems like I think it's up to the break. They have 20 games in 22 days or something like that.
Right.
And the day off was the first day, right? So it's really 21 and 20. That's tough.
I had actually not looked at the schedule before this series, and I had wrongly assumed that Monday was an off day. I was I assume that series starts Tuesday or something, but no, and now they have a 4-game series against it's against the Nats at least, but four more games before the All-Star break. So, that's what you think, those they kind of look fatigued?
It seems like it, yeah, and they've had, it's like battle fatigue almost where or you've probably experienced it as a runner before where you're running on a hill and you get to the top of the hill just to find that there's another fucking hill. And you're like, God damn it, man. And you just lose a little steam. That happens in July every year for every baseball team.
Right.
I mean, you're seeing teams that are doing well right now, like the Orioles are on a bit of a streak, but they suck out loud the rest of the time. The teams that have performed really well so far this season, like the Yankees and the Braves, actually the Braves are still 7-3 in their last 10 games.
Right.
Even though this feels like a skid because they didn't do well against the Mets, but
I think this is so. In this whole run that we talked about on this podcast, starting literally in June on June 1st, or I guess with the Diamondback series, which maybe started last day of May, whatever, we were like, okay, this is when they're going to have to get really fucking hot.
Yep.
And this is only the third series they've lost in that stretch, I think, because they lost the Diamondback series, even though their win streak, I believe, started at the end of that series.
Yeah, the last game, yeah.
And they lost the series to the Cubs, which was asinine. And then this series.
Yep. Yeah, they've been doing well. But again, this is the kind of stuff that teams go through. They call it the dog days of summer for a fucking reason.
Right.
Just the same thing every single day. And then, you know, it's a matter of leadership and concentrated discipline where I don't know that the Braves have that without Freddie Freeman on the team anymore. Like, I don't know if Austin Riley's got the clout to walk over to Ronald Acuña because, you know, Acuna and Freeman had a complicated relationship. Both, like, the guys seemed to like each other well, but Freeman would call Acuna out, and Acuna's not comfortable being called out.
Yeah.
I don't know if Riley wants to put his to hit that hornet's nest necessarily, or if
Riley even have the self-confidence to do that,
or has he been empowered by the team, I guess, maybe to do it as well. I do feel like the leadership that they have is excited leadership, right? But as somebody really smart said this, I can't remember who it was, but Baker said it on my other show, Citizen. Character is doing the right thing when the excitement wears off.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like this team needs a little bit of that on the position player side. Somebody's got to step up and be a fucking leader and not just a cheerleader, because those are not the same things. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to talk about Acuna here in a minute. And get more into that specifically, but this
could be, by the way, what you're talking about, though, and we'll tie this more into what we talk about with Acuna later. I think that's one of maybe the biggest impact losing Albies has had so far since his injury, which we still don't have a fucking timeline on, I believe, right?
No, I haven't heard anything. And yeah, he does kind of sit at that intersection. He's a very one of the better players on the team, plays with a lot of joy and excitement, but he's also the one that seems to be the guy who holds the other exceptional Latin American players on the team accountable when they're fucking around. Like, he lit Ozuna up earlier in the year. And I don't think there's any racial element to it or anything like that. It's just that he happens to be, because of his character, like, he's super serious about the game, does drill after drill after drill with Wash before every single game, but he's also like Heredia and Acuna and all these guys and Ozuna who get super excited and just love fucking playing baseball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's
sometimes,
probably the leader of the team.
I mean, dude, sometimes you want to hear it from someone like you. # representation matters. You know what
I
I
mean?
Like,
maybe, yeah.
Sometimes it means more. And I was just about. Sometimes it means more coming from someone close to you, and sometimes it means more coming from someone who's a little different from you, who maybe you might trust for other reasons or respect the opinion.
Well, they did. He and Albies came up through the system together, so they did. That would make sense if it's like that. But I don't want to make it sound like Acuna will only respond positively to other Latin American players. That's definitely not true, because he would not have made it this far in baseball if that were true.
I mean, Acuna clearly has a deep respect for Brian Snitker.
Yeah.
And vice versa, obviously. And Brian Snitker is the most white man one of the most white people I've ever seen in my life.
Pretty white, yeah.
Yeah, just like a white blob, even. Yeah. I was going to say man, but it's just sort of blob.
It's kind of like a thumb with sunglasses and New Balance sneakers on.
Was that 30 Rock line? Steve Forbes was born a ball of thumbs.
Yeah. Or you look like a piece of string cheese with an old tooth stuck in it or something. I don't know. But let's recap the Mets series since this game just finished. Game 1, Fried didn't have his best stuff.
I think 5 walks.
Yeah, which is a season high for him. Still managed to hold him to 1 run, right? Mm-hmm. But Scherzer, there was no beating him that night. As a matter of fact, I feel like if the game had been closer, if they hadn't added on a run or two, they may have just left him in and let him keep pitching. Yeah. Even though he just came back from injury, because it's Max Scherzer. I mean, he's so hard to hit. He throws, if you've ever seen the StatCast overlays, he throws 5 pitches, and all 5 of them come from the same arm slot. unless he decides to drop down for the sweeping slider or the tailing fastball, which you don't know. Those come out of the same arm slot and go in different fucking directions.
Right.
Like 5 feet from the plate. The fact that anybody ever gets a hit off him is a goddamn mystery to me.
It's unbelievable.
Like, I don't even know what your approach is. It's not so. Jordan and Francoeur both say the same shit all the time about approaches to hitting, which is you look at a guy's stuff for the day. Okay, his curveball's not working. I can eliminate that pitch. Okay, cool. If he's a 3-pitch pitcher, now you're in business. If he's a 5-pitch pitcher and very rarely doesn't have all 5, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like Max Scherzer might be the most it's too bad he didn't figure this shit out in Detroit. You know, he did the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But like the first 3 or 4 years of his career were pretty brutal.
So that's one thing that's crazy about Scherzer, by the way, that people forget, because he's closing in on 3,000 strikeouts. Or does he already have 3,000?
I think he might be over 3,000. He's closing it. Well, he's got like 225 wins.
Something like that. I mean, but like his career numbers are insane and really high. But he didn't get going until he was like 25, 26.
Yeah.
His first season in Arizona, he spent, I think, all 4 years at Missouri. So he didn't, and then there's like a little minor league. So he didn't even get to the majors until he was like 24, I think, and was his first like year in Arizona, not that great. They traded him thinking it was whatever, and then he kind of found a footing after a little while in Detroit. So, I mean.
Well, he was just so wild in the strike zone back then. And wild out of it as well. Like, so if you look at the beginning of his career from Arizona and Detroit, he had like his career strikeout per walk was about 3.5, maybe low 3s up until his year 28 season when he won that first Cy Young, and it jumped to 4.2, and then it jumped up to like somewhere between 5 and 8 up to present.
Yeah.
So the ability to command the strike zone and shit like that, I feel like we're not going to see another 300-game winner anytime soon. The only dude that even had an outside shot at it was Verlander, and I don't think he's going to be able to pitch long enough. Maybe he'll go to 44 and get it, but
I think he wants it.
I do too. I mean, he would definitely be, not definitely, but he would probably be the last person to ever do it if he was able to accomplish
damn close, yeah. And I mean, Scherzer is what, 37, so let's say
he's at 196 wins right now.
Yeah.
He's not going to get a 300.
No, but I mean, dude, like, and by the way, with Verlander, like, he I think wants to stay on the Astros in general, but you're never going to see him with a losing team again.
No, he likes to win.
He likes to win, and he's got his money, so he doesn't care. Like, he wants to have fun playing baseball, and you don't really do that in Baltimore, for example. You know what I mean?
You got to think if.
Scherzer, his first.
If he had come out a little hotter early on, he may have had an outside shot, but definitely not now.
No. So Scherzer became Max Scherzer when he was 27 years old.
Yeah.
And even that year was a 3.74 ERA, but that was his first year of 11 strikeouts per 9. And that was the guy he was in college, by the way. But it took him, his first major league season was at 23, and it took him essentially 4 seasons in the MLB before that 5th season where he finally became himself. So, again, that's all to say, his late start, he got an incredibly late start on really accumulating those statistics.
Yeah, and he's still going to hit 200 wins. Probably this year. Yeah, you got to expect he's going to hit 200 wins this year. Late last year, he got over 3,000 strikeouts, 3 Cy Young awards.
Going to eclipse 70 wins above replacement this year.
Yeah.
And probably will let's just assume he goes to age 40 because he doesn't really look like he's slowing down. Got to assume he'll be getting close to 80.
Has he had a TJ?
No. Or maybe really early in his career.
Yeah, I mean, so guys that have TJs in their late 20s usually last pretty long unless they re-injure it. So who knows?
I don't know that he's had TJ, actually. But yeah, I mean, Scherzer's insane. And so he was insane that night. And by the way, I assume because his nickname is Mad Max and he's a fucking psycho, I assume that he was real gassed up for that game in general, knowing what it means for the division and everything like that. So we got exactly what we should have expected. Honestly, we're goddamn lucky that the Dodgers used him so poorly in the division series last year. And look, any team that wins a championship, even if the Yankees win this year and like break the win 120 games and win the World Series, in the playoffs, a certain amount of luck is required no matter who the fuck you are. Mm-hmm. So some of our good fortune last year was that Dave Roberts kind of mismanaged Max Scherzer in that division series, bringing him out of the bullpen for no reason.
Yeah, that was dumb. And then he comes out the next game and his arm's dead. Yeah, like, fuck yeah, of course it is. He's not used to doing that.
Right.
Like, you've spent the last, 20 years training your arm to do something, and all of a sudden you want to retrain it to do something else over the course of 6 days. No.
Yeah.
Dude, that's horrible. Dave Roberts is a hump. I've never really enjoyed him as a manager. I think he's like, think about the managers of like truly great teams, like Spoelstra with the Heat and Phil Jackson with the Lakers and the Bulls. All these guys that have had like incredible
Belichick,
Joe Torre, Belichick, that have had like incredible lineups, clearly better than everybody else in baseball or whatever sport they're in. We remember their names because they succeeded. Who was the coach of the Seattle Mariners in 2001?
Was that still Piniella?
I don't know. I don't know who it was. They won 116 fucking games, and I don't know who was the coach of the goddamn team.
I think it was still Lou Piniella, but I'm not fucking positive. If it wasn't Lou Piniella, I have no fucking idea. Lou Piniella? All right.
Piniella, yeah. And I couldn't remember that because loser, right? Not that Lou Piniella's a loser, but he, as a manager, kind of is.
I don't think he won anything ever.
No, he never did. I mean, look, he had to spend time at the Cubs. Yeah, because they won 116 games.
It's a regular season award.
They got bounced in the first fucking round of that.
Yeah, it was brutal.
I mean, that was rough, man. It was rough to watch that. Hopefully that doesn't happen to I want to see a Braves-Yankees matchup this year.
I need 90s revenge. Now that we just got the general hump or the monkey off our back of fucking over that hump of winning a World Series, now it's revenge tour. I want to see the Cardinals in the playoffs. I want to see the fucking Yankees in the World Series. We already got the Dodgers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would be fun to do that, and just because they're two extremely good teams. The Yankees are what I mean that when I say that. Like, so I don't think the Yankees are good at hitting home runs, not particularly terrific at defense. The top end of their pitching is pretty good, but it craters pretty quickly, so we'll see how that holds up.
Well, maybe they're allowing the least runs in baseball
right now. Yeah, we'll see how that goes in the playoffs. But a good, they still are performing like this, even though there's some very obvious weaknesses. That's a good team that's managed well, right? And the Braves are a very good team that's managed well. They've had multiple injuries. They've had one of their best players has been out for a month now. They've had all sorts of issues, dudes out with injuries, people going through slumps, pitching, like Ian Anderson not working out like he thought it was still, or in
he's really looking better.
You know what I mean? But the Braves, I think, are their offense when they're actually paying attention is pretty fucking hard to deal with, to be honest. But everybody's healthy. It's tough.
I want to say they were showing a stat the other day. I assume it's skewed a little bit more in the last 3 days, but 1 through 3, 4 through 6, and 7 through 9 all are within 2 RBI of each other, which is not a thing that happens.
No other team in baseball is even close to something like that. Just having a top-to-bottom lineup and then having good starting pitching. I mean, it's underperformed a bit this year, but good starting pitching with a really good middle and back of a bullpen. I just think that would be a great series.
Oh, it'd be brilliant.
That would be an instant classic series, and I want to see it. I don't know who's going to come out of the fucking AL and stop them, to be honest. Toronto just fired their manager.
Houston's not far behind them.
Yeah, Houston's looking pretty good. They quietly kind of just putter along and win 105 games every year. So that's going to be you got to expect that's going to be the LCS over there, right?
I hope so. I mean, I don't want to see any other two teams fucking play each other in the ALCS.
And it's going to be Verlander, Valdez, and Garcia for the Astros, like they did last year, pretty much. Well, not Verlander, but who was it? McCullers, yeah.
So I don't know what McCullers' deal is. He's on the 60-day IL right now, and he, ever since whatever injury he had that prevented him from being in the World Series, he hasn't come back from that yet. But I mean, they get McCullers back with that fucking rotation. That's
And then from the Yankees, it's going to be obviously Garrett Cole, James Talion, and Nestor Cortez, who, after starting off super hot, hasn't been so hot lately. I think, let's see, actually I can look. June and July so far, he's about a 4.20 ERA. 3-2 record.
Yeah,
but
I mean that's a team where
it's a far cry from the 1.50 ERA you put up for the the first 2 months of the season.
Well, I mean the Yankees, I think, like the Mets, got off to. I mean they just and like the Braves for that matter, ripped off insane stretches.
Yeah.
The Braves are still hopefully in the process of ripping off that stretch. So game 2, the Braves win against the Mets, come back late. I think Olson hits a 2-run homer in the 6th, and then Duvall does it again in the 7th.
Yeah, it was a bit of a battle for him in that game, but I was really impressed with how entirely composed Strider is. I think he might be a sociopath. Like you can tell he gets irritated from time to time.
Yeah,
and you can when he gets excited, when he's really in a groove, he pirouettes after what he knows is going to be a strikeout pitch, which is a level of confidence that's really important for a young player, especially a pitcher like that. But he didn't have his good stuff.
Didn't make it 5 innings.
No, he threw a lot of pitches, man. He threw 103 pitches in 4.2 innings.
So we talked shit on this Mets lineup a episode or two ago, just about how they were kind of taking advantage of their luck, and had seen that luck had run out in terms of BABIP.
But they're still grinders.
That's the thing.
Especially the first 3 guys. Nimmo, Canna, and Lindor, they're just tough outs.
And Alonso. I mean, those are those guys.
Well, Alonso's a fucking slugger, but those other guys are just super tough outs. Nimmo, saw 10 pitches to open the game. That sucks.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a power pitcher, especially, and you're used to striking people out, having to spend 10 pitches on the first batter of the game kind of gets you out of your rhythm, I think. And I don't think he ever really – I don't think rhythm-wise he recovered from it, but he battled through, man. He still struck out 8 people. He only gave up 1 earned run. Matzik kind of saved him a little bit on that.
Yeah.
And I was glad to see him, because it's been going pretty well for him lately. I was glad to see him hit a bump and just kind of keep going over it. You know what I mean? That's a good. It's a. Obviously, as a Braves fan, I want them to win every goddamn game. But when you look back on the season, that was the part where he fucking figured out not to panic in this situation or whatever.
Yeah.
And it went really well for them. And Olson drilled that ball to center field. And then Seth Lugo, who's got one of the better curveballs in baseball, I don't know if anybody out of the bullpen has a better curveball than that. Obviously, starting pitchers, Wainwright throws the best curveball of all time, except for maybe Mike Scott from Houston in the 80s or some shit. But, Lugo comes out and he hangs that curveball, man. He throws it. It doesn't back up enough. It just kind of hangs.
Yeah.
And inside, the black to about 6 or 8 inches off the inside of the plate, Duvall's going to hit that ball to the moon every single time.
Which he fucking did.
Yeah, he
absolutely
crushed that ball.
Which was nice little fucking cushion. Braves win that game. However, I will say, until the Olson home run and all of game 1, bats didn't look great.
No.
They threatened late in game 1. I mean, Acuna had that double that unfortunately only moved Harris to third, or I don't remember who was on in front of him, but Acuna had a double late, and we were threatening with Dansby up. I think maybe to tie the game or get it. I mean, the tying run was either at the plate or on second. I can't remember off the top of my head. But, I mean, it was a big moment in the 8th inning. Other than that, and then when they started getting going in the 6th or whatever, I mean, and then again today in game 3, the bats, not much going on.
No, they didn't. Look, you're going to fail about 75 or so % of the time as a team.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to come around with a 240 to 260 batting average for most teams during the year. Giorgio just shit his fucking pants.
Yeah. Just
very
absolutely farted. I know he felt it.
You're going to fail a lot like that. What I don't like seeing is non-competitive at bats, because it just lets the pitcher off the hook and the other team off the hook. We'll get to this in a second, but Acuña's been doing quite a bit of that lately. Yeah. Just flailing at pitches with no plan. Or if the thing that makes certain players great, like Chipper Jones, Albert Pujols, some of these guys. Mike Trout's another guy like that.
And by the way, those are big names, but like that's someone Acuna is supposed to be mentioned with.
Like 30% of baseball fans think that Acuna is the best player in baseball, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like they vote for him, they vote for Mike Trout, and there's a couple other guys involved in that conversation. But he's one of the best, one of the top 5 players in baseball. People expect this shit out of you. The mental toughness as well, right? So they have an A plan. Like I'm going up there looking for this pitch, and then a pitch comes, and maybe it's that pitch, and it wasn't exactly where they need it to be, but they know that the chances of that same pitch coming up in that bat again are slim, so I go on to plan B now. Mm-hmm. What's my plan B, which is to drive a ball through the right side of the infield or whatever it is, right? Chipper would sit on one pitch, and if he got it and missed it, he'd move on to plan B, plan C after that, and whatever the case is. I don't know that Acuna has developed that much as of now, but he's 23 years old, right? I mean,
he's a baby.
He's a baby. So we'll see how he develops.
We just talked about Max Scherzer, who's a Hall of Famer who didn't have his first great year until he was 27.
Yeah. So I wonder where who's talking to him about that, because we saw Austin Riley in 2019.
A lot of power.
A lot of power up front, but the big hole in the swing, right?
And if I recall, just loved to chase sliders a foot off the plate.
Yeah.
Oof, could not lay off.
Yeah, he completely sold out for that pitch. Chipper Jones works with him for an off season, gets a bit better. Hard to tell in the bubble bullshit, but he comes back at 21 and crushes it this year. Again, he's crushing it. I don't know who that is I don't know who that mentor is for Acuna. Like, I don't know if it's Chipper Jones that's going to do that work. You know what I mean? It may be somebody else.
It stinks that it's tough. I'm sure Acuna respects Chipper and all that stuff.
Sure,
but going back to the Albies point we made earlier, and especially with teaching, it's one thing with motivation. It's another thing with literal, like, nut and bolt teaching.
Yeah.
When there's a language barrier, that's really fucking hard.
Yep.
And no offense to Albies or Acuna's other, like, two real close bros on the Braves, Ozuna and Heredia, but like those aren't the guys you want to learn hitting from. Even Albies, who is a great hitter,
but that would be like learning how to hit from Vlad Sr.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just like he doesn't necessarily have a plan, and he happens to be a really good bad ball hitter. I think something like 30% of Albies hits come on pitches out of the zone. You don't want to teach that.
Albies figured out how to play baseball for himself.
Yep.
And not saying he's not a team player or anything, but I mean, like
to make his style of play work.
Right.
Yeah. And that's not like Chipper Jones, and despite being, I guess they're the same handedness, but despite being a switch hitter, he and Riley have like their approach at the plate is really similar. Yeah. And it was before he started coaching him as well. So that's kind of an easy fix.
And Chipper worked with Swanson as well.
Yep.
And again, they're both kind of Riley and Swanson and Chipper are all kind of the same type of hitter, like a little discerning, power to all. I mean, Acuna has power to all fields as well.
Yep.
But like, Swanson and Riley are a little more similar to Chipper, whereas Acuna is just like, I mean, no offense to Chipper, but Acuna is a far more dynamic hitter than Chipper Jones is.
For sure, yeah.
Like Chipper won a lot with approach and mind. Not that he wasn't athletically gifted, because he was, but like Acuna can do everything.
Yeah, but it's like the rare combination of extreme talent and that work ethic and drive to be better all the time that produces people like Trout and Pujols and Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, right? Where a lot of people who have great physical talent or some other kind of talent fall short of that.
What you don't want is a J.R. Smith situation.
Right, yeah.
Where J.R., I mean, if you remember J.R. Smith on the Nuggets, that guy was as athletic as anybody in the NBA.
Or, what's his name? Dwight Howard is another guy like that.
Yeah.
He's never seemed to really reach his full potential. But yeah, look, Acuna is 23 years old and already one of the best players in baseball. He's been going through it lately. His first 32 games back, I think that started, the second week of May or something? He came back a little earlier.
It was when we were still skidding.
Yeah, he came back. The first 32 games was about a month and a half worth of games. 316 average, 950 OPS. That's legit. Last 23 games, he's hitting 221. and his OPS is in the 6s, which is like a slugging percentage of 300 and an on-base percentage of 300.
Don't want either of those things.
Yeah.
I guess maybe, if you want to play David Eckstein ball and OBP around the 4s and slug 200, but yeah, it's not fucking great. I noticed this, or I thought of this as we were talking about the Albies injury. Last 23 games, that's about when Albies went out. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that, in fact, I have a point later that kind of refutes that, but that is an interesting coincidence, I guess you could say. His defense, Acuna, well, let's get into the hitting first. What have you seen? Because Seitzer has a theory, but I want to see what you think you've seen out of Acuna. You say that I agree with you on it doesn't seem like there's a plan, but I don't know that I have ever gotten the like. It doesn't feel like I've ever seen that Acuna has a plan.
Not necessarily.
Even when he's going.
Like every now and again, you'll see him very intentionally go the other way. But yeah, I don't see him as a good situational hitter, to be honest. And also, well, to answer your question, to diagnose what I think might be going on, it looks like his timing is off, which is the same thing that Swanson struggled with the first 2 months, month and a half or so of the season. And usually, like, you see guys make adjustments. Bryce Harper is really good at this, it makes it surprising that sometimes he goes through extended slumps. I don't understand why, because he's actually really good at making adjustments. So you'll see him, if he has a series of games, 5 or 10 games, where he's just like late on fastballs that he normally wouldn't be, then he spreads his stance out a little bit more and does a toe tap or a lift and plant instead of a long stride, right? And if he's routinely out in front of the ball, then he'll do the opposite. He'll shorten his fucking stance back up and then fucking stride out a little bit more to meet that ball right out in front of the plate where you want to hit it. I don't see Acuna make adjustments ever.
Yeah.
Like, his batting stance looks exactly the same as now as it does, or it did when he first came up. And I wonder,
would you call what Harper does kind of like a, like almost like a little timing cheat to kind of like?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's like Kentucky windage. Like, I'm a little bit ahead, so what can I do mechanically? Like, I don't want to change the way I see the ball or the way I process the pitch coming in, because that takes a lifetime to perfect.
Yeah.
But I can change my timing mechanism a little bit. Like, when do I tap my toe? When his knees at his apex, or when his foot plants, or when is it, right? So I think I see Acuna looking at the iPad more lately. But
which is encouraging.
Yeah, it's encouraging but as somebody there that understands. So look, you could be a great fucking baseball player, and you can be a goddamn rocket scientist and not understand what you're seeing when you watch yourself try to hit. Right. Somebody needs to come in and tell you what that is. There's a guy on the team that does that. It's Kevin Seitzer.
I mean, just you're going to talk about something we do. It's a lot easier to edit other people's writing.
Sure, yeah.
Than it is your own writing.
Yep.
Right?
Because you're forced to read it out loud, basically. Yeah. And if you're a writer at home, you should read things that you write out loud to yourself before you press send on that email, because you may sound like an asshole or an idiot. But I'm curious about what Seitzer has to say about this.
So Seitzer, I think Seitzer's a great hitting coach, by the way. So obviously we talk about how Chipper helped with Riley's swing, and Chipper talked to Swanson and everything like that, and that's fine. Chipper was a hitting consultant and all that stuff, but Seitzer's the fucking sergeant in the trenches, right? Like, Seitzer is the one running the day.
He's the guy that sees them every day. Yeah, for sure.
So Seitzer, he said, there's a story in The Athletic about it today from Jeff Schultz, and I'm going to quote from that story. If you don't have The Athletic, highly recommend, especially if you're a baseball fan. They're really excellent at baseball, college football as well. So Seitzer said he's struggling. There's mechanical stuff that we're working on. He's just having a hard time getting comfortable. It's ongoing. It happens to all of them over the course of the year. He's frustrated, which is great to hear, that he's not just like, man, fuck this. Like, he wants to do good and he expects to do good. So the Schultz asked Seitzer, he's like, well, he's in a slump now, but he had a hot start. Like, he was ripping it. And Seitzer, so this is what Seitzer had to say about that I found really interesting. Seitzer said, he was like, yeah, but for me, it wasn't normal Ronnie, his normal high exit velos, driving the ball the other way and all that. And he's like, yeah, he had a few homers and he had some extra base hits, but when this guy gets going, it's rockets all over the field. Pitchers are scared, and he's all full of confidence. He's making them come to the middle of the plate because he's not chasing the garbage pitches they want him to swing on. So essentially, Seitzer was like, yeah, he was hot early when he came up, but it wasn't really the way Ronald hits.
That makes sense, yeah.
So he kind of got lucky early, I guess you could say, or something like that. Or maybe people were just like seeing how healthy he was.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, if you have some success, sometimes the name alone will do it. People still pitch Albert Pujols pretty aggressively, even though if you're a righty and you throw low and away sliders, you could probably strike him out. Yeah. To be honest, you could just throw low and away slider after low and away slider and probably strike him out.
He's got 2 homers in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
He's at 685 now. Yeah. I just want the Cardinals to tank so that they can apology-free let Pujols play as many games as he can to get to 700.
Yeah, that would be nice. But yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe it is that people just didn't know what whether to fear him or not, because it's not. You don't usually. It's very rare in baseball that you would even think about pitching around or being careful to the leadoff hitter, which is kind of the reason they put him there, right? Yeah. To throw the pitcher off a little bit. I can think of. It
allows him more ambush opportunities as well.
I can think of a couple of people throughout, like Ricky Henderson. Obviously, you would be very careful to him, and
Trey Turner.
Yeah. As far as like people who have slugging capability that are routine in the leadoff position. It's not been a lot of people over the years. Like Brady Anderson did it 1 year, but he was so juiced up, his fucking head was about to explode.
I do appreciate that 1 year got him a cameo on Sabrina the Teenage Witch in the 90s.
Well, that was she was the kingmaker, I guess, back then. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how Acuna comes out of it. I've seen some stuff out of him lately that made me hopeful. Like you can tell he's thinking about trying to fix some stuff. Still hasn't really figured it out yet, but it's July, and he's going to go into the home run derby next Monday, I guess.
He is, and that's just exciting in and of itself. But I almost wonder if maybe he gets a reverse effect out of it.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, so it's a good opportunity to. I wonder if he's going to just have Seitzer come throw a BP to him for that.
Yeah.
Like, here's what I want you to work on during the home run derby, because you get a lot of swings, man.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes. Yeah, some people do well with that, some people don't. It didn't. The time before that he participated, it had no effect. Because he just did the exact same thing that Ronald Acuña usually does, which is hit the ball where it's pitched hard as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, he hit like 12 opposite field home runs.
He was like, it was to the point where you're like, are you just going oppo for fun at this
do
point?
You even care?
Like what do you do? Like, it was such a bizarre thing. But I do appreciate, and that's kind of telling to me that he's frustrated. And I didn't realize this till I read this article, but do you remember the other day when he hit that home run? He fucking crushed it. I think it was off the Nats.
Yeah, and he was very happy about it.
He celebrated the shit out of that home run.
It was kind of a meaningless home run, to be honest.
Yeah. And I was kind of like, okay, Rod, like, I love him, but I was like, all right, man, like, it's the Nats, you're killing them.
Yeah.
But it makes a lot more sense now, because he was like, thank fucking God.
Yeah.
That's who I am. That's how it's supposed to feel. So yeah, man, I hope he gets it back. It is interesting to me, though, that Seitzer put that into perspective of, yeah, he had a nice start for a month, literally month and a half, but it was a mirage in a way.
And it's, I mean, to the frustration point as well, I think it's coming through on the field a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
Because he's made some pretty boneheaded plays. One last night, actually, that could have been.
With Lindor getting a third.
Yeah. That could have gone a lot worse than it did. He got, Matzik kind of fucking bailed him out there, but, he's I don't know how many fucking line drives to the gap he's fielded in that ballpark, but it's a lot. Right. And he knows exactly how to play that, and he just kind of he took a bad route and he didn't hustle to get over there in the first place. And there was a fly ball down the right field line in the Nats series too, where he kind of like dogged it. I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh, really late in the game, where it was like I thought that was more. I didn't think that was hustle. I thought that was more of a mental hiccup.
Could be, yeah.
I think he was. I think he kind of didn't. It was more of like he didn't read the ball well, but in a way that it was because maybe there was an attention deficit there.
It's possible, yeah.
I didn't think that one. There's a lot of Braves fans on Twitter and Reddit that were like, hustle. He doesn't hustle. Blah. That didn't look to me like hustle. Just from the way he approached that ball, because I remember the Andrew Jones situation from the 90s. Yeah. Andrew was just like, whatever.
That's the only time I think I've ever seen a Major League Baseball player get benched in the middle of an inning.
Oh,
I don't know that I've ever seen that, but like a coach walk out onto the fucking field and say,
get the fuck off.
You're done.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it was a situation like that. I mean, look, a player that's frustrated like that, it's hard not to carry it out on the field with you. I also understand.
Especially as, again, a 23-year-old.
Yeah. I understand that he's coming back from an injury. And look, I'm certainly not saying that he should make up for his bad route he ran on the ball by injuring himself just to make a fucking point. That's stupid. So, you got to live with that mistake and try to coach him out of it. Like, hey, look, dude, you still got to fucking make that play. Or if you're nervous about your knee and impact stuff like that, you got to take a different route. Like, this is going to be something that comes up throughout your life as a professional athlete. You're going to lose a step. You're going to face an injury, or you're going to face you're going to be in a ballpark that's different, or something where you have to adjust the way you do things. You got to be able to do that as a star player.
He had a massive injury.
Yeah,
like it was a no bullshit injury, and I have to assume that was the first time he's ever suffered an injury even remotely like that in his life.
I would assume so. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here probably.
Yeah. So it's honestly it's almost like a 13-year-old, right? He's learning about his body. He's in a new, frustrating way. Yeah. Which sucks. But I do think that play against the Nats, which almost cost us a game, and if we had lost that game, we'd be 3.5 out now instead of 2.5 out. So in that sense, that's frustrating to see because we're in a tight division race, and as much as I love to dunk on the Mets and LOL Mets and all that shit, like, they're not going away this year.
Well, I don't want to count on them to fuck up.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
I'd rather count on us to just rip it off.
And today, Morton just looked like shit. Walking people and throwing belt-high fastballs that are getting driven out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
He has a game like that, probably once every 4 games, and he's had a couple in a row that were good, so kind of had to expect this is going to happen at some point.
Yeah, and the more I see Morton like this, and that's fine, Anderson too, the more I think trade for a starter, Strider back to the bullpen. I know Strider is going to be in the rotation or whatever. You don't need to do it this year. And again, he's going to have a hard innings cap fucking anyway. You can't just let him rip like we talked about for 160 innings. So fuck it. But we got to move on. Let's get in some ads real quick before we keep going. If you love sports and you love making money, then you need to go to MyBookie.com because it is the place for you. Not only does betting with MyBookie.com make every game more exciting, but when you sign up using the promo code DrinkinBros, your first deposit will be instantly doubled up to $1,000. With thousands of bets to make on all your favorite sports, there's no shortage of ways for you to win at MyBookie.com. On top of having amazing lines and props, MyBookie is also home to several exclusive contests and promotions so that you can bet anything, anytime. You're not going to find these anywhere else. They've got a casino, and it's a real casino, not an electric casino. There's a person dealing cards and all that stuff on camera. So get off the couch and get in the game with MyBookie.com and turn your love of sports into your new side hustle. Head to MyBookie.com today. Use the promo code DrinkinBros to get your first deposit doubled instantly up to $1,000 and start winning today. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. So Acuna, not the only hitter having a interesting, weird, good, bad, bad, good type of year for the Braves. Olson, I read this today as well in the Sporting News, and I honestly just copy and pasted it because I love the way they put it together. Olson is having like a good hitting year, but not a Matt Olson hitting year.
Right. It's been a bit different, yeah. It seems like he's getting, like the exit velo is good. he's had some spouts where he misses a lot of pitches, but it's almost I don't know how to explain it. Maybe he's getting on top of the ball more. Like his angle's not great because he's hitting a fuckload of doubles. I mean, he's almost assuredly going to set the franchise record for doubles this season.
He's threatening the all-time major league record
which
for
is
doubles.
what, 69 or something.
63.
Like that? Oh, that's the all-time record?
He has 33 doubles right now. There are 4 games left against a terrible team before the All-Star break. We are across the halfway point for games played.
Right, yeah.
But the All-Star break is kind of like, obviously, the unofficial halfway point.
He's on pace for 59 doubles right now. I mean, that could go either way pretty easily. He's
within striking distance.
Yeah, for sure.
So he leads all of baseball with 33 doubles, which 33 doubles in an entire year is a good year. Mm-hmm. I think Dansby's on pace for like 35 doubles, which is great. Mm-hmm. However, his 810 OPS is 100 points off last year, which not really what you want. But, I mean, an 810, you can't complain about an 810 OPS, though.
Yeah.
That's a good OPS. And I think Freddie's OPS is higher this year, but it's still in the 8s. So it's not like we're dropping off a shit ton on that, but that's it. And it's interesting. So like the OPS, he's down on homer. His homer pace is off essentially. Right. So that is hurting the slugging, but again, he's still slugging a shit ton.
He had 35 doubles all of last year.
Right.
He's at 33 now. Yeah. His slugging is definitely the main contributor here. He's slugged 540 last year, slugging 476 this year. I mean, it's a respectable number, but you come to expect more.
You expect a heavy bat out of Olson.
But it does seem like, he's kind of gotten things going here lately. Slugging percentage over the last 30 days is 491. Over the last 15 days, it's 516. So he's back up in the right spot now.
He hit another home run today.
Yeah, hit another home run today.
To dead center.
Yeah, he seems to be into that sort of thing. But yeah, he's
Do you think there was any point, and I don't know, this is pure conjecture, but he came up with Oakland, and we talked about this in the preseason and probably early in the season as well. Oakland is a fucking cavernous ballpark, right? Like, you play half your games there in a place that's really fucking hard to hit home runs, and he's a lefty. Now you come to Atlanta, you see that nice little short porch out there, and, do you think I didn't see it in a swing, but I'm no expert on that. But you wonder if maybe that just looked a little juicy to him.
It's possible, yeah. I mean, it's happened to plenty of people over the years. Mm-hmm. Some people lean into it. Rizzo has done a pretty good job hitting home runs in Yankee Stadium. But there have been guys who have gone to the Yankees and played in that ballpark and really struggled.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you know a guy's trying to, especially it's one thing to know that a pitcher lives on the outside of the plate. It's another thing to know that a hitter is looking for something
to pull
middle end to pull, right? Because then you just don't throw that fucking pitch. Or if you do, it's a slider in off the plate, which he's swung and missed at a lot this year.
And also not just to pull, but when you see that short porch, you almost get this idea of like, oh my God, if I crush the ball that way, I'm going to look like I got the biggest fucking dick on the planet. Yeah. I remember, this is Little League, so take it for what it's worth. And I mean, really Little League. This is like 3rd grade, not even actually 2nd grade. This is when I was like literally still being coach pitched to. But I remember we were playing one day, and I'm a lefty, and right field had this hill and it was like a really short thing. So it was like if I hit the ball onto that hill, or even though I was a 2nd grader, I could have hit the cars parked on the street on the other side of that hill. It was not very far. Yeah. And the coach told me, knowing I was a lefty, he was like, if I was a lefty, he's like, I'd be licking my lips at that hill, like, or whatever. And so I took that to mean at the time, I was like, I need to be swinging out of my fucking shoes, trying to hit the ball up there. And I had a horrible game. And again, little kid, that's fine and all, but I think there's a human element to that where you just kind of see that subconsciously, and you're like, dude, if I hit the ball hard that direction, I'm going to look like a terrifying motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, I mean, the numbers are still pretty good.
He's having great numbers.
Yeah, like his WRC plus is still 122.
Which is bizarre because, again, that's great, but it'd be his lowest in 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of his stats are kind of tracking a little bit below standard right now. Maybe he's not comfortable yet. Maybe he's working on some shit. Who the fuck knows?
I have to assume most of the pitchers he's seeing for the first time.
Yeah, that's probably part of it as well.
Or close to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, granted, that goes both ways, right? But you're not going to groove Matt Olson a fastball because you're like, he hasn't seen me before.
Yeah. And the book is out on pretty much everybody. If you've played 10 or 15 games in the majors, I don't give a shit how obscure you are. They've got tape on you, and somebody's telling that pitcher how to pitch to you.
Oh yeah.
Your name is probably on somebody's little card on their wristband if you're for the catchers.
Yeah.
Good on base percentage, 341. His career is about 347. You'd want that to be a little bit higher, probably. I think it was 370 last year.
But he's having good at bats almost every time. He is not seeing 4 pitches in at bat. He's seeing 5, 6, 7 pitches in at bat. I mean, he that's actually one thing I was worried about with him is like, okay, he has more power potential than Freddie does, but are we sacrificing the sort of like, God damn it, at bat in the middle of the lineup for the other team? You know what I mean? Where it's just like, fuck.
Yeah, Freddie's always been a tough out.
And Olson has been that guy. Like Olson has been that guy, and that, like I said, that's one thing I was worried about with Freddie being gone. But Olson has done a good job of being a tough at bat in the early middle of the lineup. Yeah. And with Riley behind him, you have another tough at bat. With Dansby in front of him, and it's all bastard at bats. In that portion of the lineup, and then I don't know, Acuna comes up, and you just hope you don't groove him one. But so that's been great for him. But slugging, he's just not making the contact he wants. I don't know.
Well, I think he's not getting some of those really good pitches to hit because he's swinging it shit out of the zone a lot. I mean, so he's had a lot of trouble with sliders low and in, and the high end or high middle in fastball. That's been a problem for him a lot.
I believe Bassett, his former teammate, I think in Olson's at bat in the first inning today, struck him out on a top of the zone, middle in fastball. It was a great at bat for Olson either way. I think it went like 9-10 pitches, but Bassett finally got him. I would call it on the outer corner or outer half of or outer side or whatever of the inside of the plate. Like it was high, just barely middle in.
Well, I mean, go back to what Seitzer said about Acuna, about him not seeing some of the pitches that he usually hits really well because he's swinging at shitty pitches. It's the same thing that Austin Riley had to get over, and the same thing that Dansby Swanson had to get over, that low and away slider for those two guys. For Olson, it's the low and end slider and that elevated fastball. To be honest, man, just if you're looking for that pitch and spit on it, especially if it's like a 2-strike count or it's a count that historically you've been chasing that pitch, it doesn't take you spitting on that pitch many times to get in the pitcher's head and be like, oh shit, he fucking knew exactly. Because the only way you don't react to that if you've been reacting to it before is if you saw it coming. And I'm not saying that the pitchers think they're tipping pitches or anything. What I'm saying is this dude that's not an out pitch for anymore. And now you can start to cross that pitch off your list a little bit, and he's got to go back. So, if you can eliminate just one of those two things, if you can eliminate the low and end slider, if you can discipline yourself on that and not swing at that pitch as a 6'9" dude, I don't know how tall that he is, but he's tall as shit.
Yeah.
That high fastball that gets you out, when you're looking for it, he can put that ball out of the ballpark. He's done it multiple times to dead center field this year.
Yeah.
Like a pitch that is on the, not necessarily on the inside corner, but on the inner half, elevated, maybe even a little out of the strike zone, and he deposits that ball 420 or so feet away. He can do that, but not if he's also susceptible to that low end slider. So you eliminate one of those things, and then you fucking, get the pitch that you can crush. I think that's been his problem mostly. And going to a new team, it's all the shit's tough. It takes time to do stuff.
I wonder too, this is kind of like it's very speculative inside baseball thing, but the older, shittier stadiums, like Oakland, like Shea, and like Olympic Stadium or whatever in Montreal, incredible batter's eyes.
Yeah.
People love hitting there because it's just, there's nothing out in front of you.
Yeah, there's no ads and shit on the fucking wall out there.
I don't think Truist has a bad batter's eye or anything like that, but he probably left one of the best batter's eyes in baseball. I mean, people like Chipper loved hitting at Shea because there was just nothing in the entire middle of that stadium. And Andrew Jones said his favorite was Olympic. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he's adjusting to some measure of that as well.
Maybe a little bit. But the other part of that is, highest whiff rate of his career, highest chase rate of his career, but he's also hitting, like when he hits the ball, he hits it very hard.
Yeah.
92.4 mile per hour average exit velo is pretty high. But his launch angle sucks, and that's kind of what makes me think the timing is off. Like, you're still hitting the ball hard, but you're not hitting it right out in front of the plate where you really want to. You know,
and his barrel percentage is the lowest of his career as well. So that does kind of imply a timing situation, right?
You know, he had to fix that earlier in his career with Oakland. So that stance he has, which, by the way, Seitzer had Michael Harris mimic to some degree to fix his issue of wrapping the bat back around his head. Olson, big, tall, lanky dude with a kind of a long swing, did that when he was his first couple of years in Oakland as well. He would wrap the bat and get choked out on pretty much anything inside. Now he's got his hands way out here. Maybe it's time for another adjustment, right? Who knows? Like, Cal Ripken used to change his batting stance every single year based on whatever crazy bullshit was going on in his head, but it was effective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's also, I think this is kind of a weird stat. Slugging 524, 890 OPS with the bases empty, and then 403 and 713 with people on. Remember that he was the only guy getting on base. Every single at bat he fucking had for the first month and a half of the season was with nobody on base.
Right.
So I think that might be that stat might be a little dubious.
And you know, he's been batting third all year, and so like I would have to dive in more on the numbers in terms of like, all right, well, sure, those are worse, but how often were Albies and Swanson and Acuna getting on base?
Yeah.
And then the fucking other team's like, all right, bring me the lefty or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, time to go to the bullpen, because we have typically been a late inning team that's abusing bullpens. So I wonder how often he found himself at the unfortunate position of being the first or second batter to face some, specialist out of the bullpen instead of a gassed starter or something like that.
Yeah, and this next stat is a little dubious as well. So his OPS and Braves losses is 879, and their wins, it's 757. But remember, they went on a fucking torrid run of 14 consecutive wins when he wasn't exactly hitting well. So obviously that's going to dilute that a little bit. And he was the only batter to really get off to a good start this year.
Yeah. I'm not worried. That to me is a total coincidental stat.
Yeah.
I don't put any stock into that.
Yeah, but I mean, we need a little bit more contact out of him.
Yes.
And that's all, like, And
I think that's what's happening, by the way, with his, like we said, he works great at bats and he sees a lot of pitches. It's just that his on base percentage is still fine, but he's not finishing at bats that don't end in walks a lot of time.
Yeah, and he's walking quite a bit less now than he was earlier in the season. I mean, he had 32 walks and about 186 at bats here. Yeah. To begin the season. Now he's got 15 walks over his last 160 at bats. So it's like I don't know if they're pitching him more aggressively or if his chase rate's going up in June and July. Yeah, I'd have to look into that, but he's a professional hitter. I'm not at all concerned about that.
No, he knows what he's doing. He's an adult. He's not even like Acuna, who, physical ability's off the charts, but he's still only 23. Like, this is a mature man.
Yeah.
Professional, knows how to do it. Real quick, there are two other interesting things in notes. One, that the Braves have Robinson Cano on their major league roster now.
Yeah, that's weird.
It is interesting. I don't know what that means for Albies or anything. I'd like to get a little more information before I see. Just kind of interesting that Cano is on the roster. But the bigger news, I think, in terms organizationally, is that the Braves traded Drew Waters and some other prospects to the Royals for the number 35 pick in this year's draft. That's interesting for two reasons. Number one, it gives us, I think, $2.2 million in extra signing capital for this year's draft, and that moved us from having the 19th most to the 10th most, which is a nice little upgrade in terms of tiers.
Yeah.
And then also we have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds of this year's draft, which by all accounts is deeper than usual.
Yeah, this is going to be a good draft. Yeah. And you know, Drew Waters just wasn't going to play for the Braves. That outfield's pretty crowded already. And crowded with a 21-year-old and a almost 25-year-old and Acuna plus whomever's in left. And yeah,
I mean, well, Rosario's on a contract for 2 more years, I think, and not that Azuna's going to see the field very much, but he's got, I think, 2 more years.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's Duvall. So yeah, I mean, where do you put Waters without multiple people getting injured?
But I could see him. I could see him playing in the majors for the Royals this year.
I think that's the plan.
Yeah, I would expect it probably is. They've had, like, if you pull up their depth chart, there's a lot of red ink on here. You know what I mean? For people that are on the IL or day-to-day or whatever, they've been banged up and they're not.
They still got Benintendi, but like Salvi Perez.
Well, Benintendi's not going to be there.
He won't be there.
Like by the end of August, he'll be gone.
No, honestly, I think at this point they're holding on to Salvador Perez. Well, he's injured, but in general, just because reminds people
that's who sells tickets. Yeah,
won a World Series in 2015.
Yeah, and there's a couple other things too. So Vaughn Grissom got promoted from low A or from high A to double A.
I believe had a really good game at double A in his first.
Yeah. So in A-ball in Rome, Georgia, he hit .312, 891 OPS. He's a big, strong kid. He's 6'3", shortstop. Hit 11 homers in that period over 74 games and stole 20 bases. Came up in his first game in Mississippi, went 3 for 5 with a walk, a steal, and 2 RBI. So, honestly, the rumor around town is that this kid's probably going to see the majors in 24, which complicates things. So, I mean, maybe it doesn't complicate things. Maybe it actually solves a problem. The problem that AA is having right now is that, as much as we all love Dansby Swanson, he's kind of pricing himself out of the Atlanta market right now.
Right.
I think if you look on Sport Track, his fucking expected salary is like $22 million a year, and I'm not sure the Braves are going to do that.
I love Dansby Swanson, but I'm not sure it's worth that.
Yeah, and I think what might be
because he's what is it? Defense doesn't slump or whatever is the saying, or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's fine, but it does age.
It does age, and you typically.
And it ages faster than the bat.
It does, yeah. And a $12 million per annum raise for a 29-year-old, maybe that happens, but usually not, right? Usually you're in your first contract at 29, 30, maybe at the end of it, or you're re-signing for a longer-term deal and not coming out of arbitration like that. My guess is, unless Swanson takes some kind of team-friendly deal, that they're going to go on the market and find a guy for a year.
They're certainly not going to offer him more than 4 years.
No, I wouldn't expect so.
Maybe five. But they were only giving Freddie 5, and I expect your defense is going to age better at first base than it is at shortstop.
Sure.
And B, I think Freddie's bat is.
He had quite a bit more of a fucking track record than Swanson does.
No offense to Swanson, who has always had the pedigree, and this is kind of what we always thought he could be, is happening this year. But I think, if they can get him to sign a 4-year deal with maybe a 5th option. But, I mean, then it's what do you do? Look, there is something to be said for taking the known asset, the known quantity, right? I mean, look at how insane would you have fucking sounded 3 years ago if you're like, yeah, dude, trade Waters, trade Pache.
Yeah.
You would have, every Braves fan would have been like, you're fucking high.
Well, I did say that before this season that they were going to get traded, but it was obvious after just paying attention. Once Michael Harris had a great year last year, it was pretty obvious it was going to happen. But yeah, 2 or 3 years ago, that would have been like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right, and they were at about the same place
Yeah.
Vaughn Grissom is right now. So, I mean, prospects are never – I mean, it's a fucking lottery. Even when they have the pedigree, it's a fucking lottery.
And you never know what's going to happen trade-wise between now and the end of this year even, or, you know, there are some restricted free agents or guys that can opt out as well, people like Correa, although he's looking for a long-term deal.
Right.
But Andrelton Simmons is going to be a free agent after this year. I could honestly, if Dansby gets priced out, I could see them going out and getting him for a year to plug in because he's going to play great defense. You know he's going to play great defense.
Yeah, but the bat's going to be.
I mean, that bat is bad, but, you know, what are you going to do? There's not a whole lot of options out there, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, the other guys that are coming off the books this year at shortstop, there's only 11 free agents. Trey Turner's at the top, but he's going to get a $30 million a year contract for sure.
And deserve it. How old is Trey Turner?
29.
So he's the same age as Dansby.
He's like a couple of months older. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Didi Gregorius is coming off, but
He's a
nobody's
dead
going to
person.
take a fucking risk
I
on
don't want
that. A couple of other dudes, Diaz from Houston and Iglesias from Colorado, but I mean, who knows, right? Who knows what's going to happen? My guess is that at most the Braves are going to offer Swanson a 3-year deal, probably.
I mean, the way he plays defense and the way people, even though the shift is going to be reduced starting next year, the way positioning has become such a thing where it was not before.
Yeah.
One thing I will say about his defense that gives me hope or makes me optimistic or whatever is that the primary skill he has on defense is hands. Mm-hmm. And hands don't age like range ages. Hands stay. Yeah. That's why Omar Vizquel, before he started using his hands on mentally challenged bat boys, that's why he played till he was 41, because he had incredible hands. So the fact that Dansby and just tech in general will allow him to position himself in advantageous ways might mean that hands, and I guess he's got a good burst. Dansby's never been a range guy.
No, I mean, no, definitely not. But hands, yeah,
so
for sure.
Maybe that gives me optimism that he's worth giving if you're really desperate, 5 years.
Yeah. I would. There's no way I would give him 5.
5 is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe 4. I think they're going to try to get him on 3, but we'll see what happens. I mean, everybody's going to be in line to fucking overpay him.
Yeah.
And he's going to have to face the same shit that Freddie Freeman did. Now, Freeman's having a great year. We'll see how he ages. We all think that he's going to age well, and that's going to be a good deal for Dodgers and him, but you never know, right? So for Swanson, though, at that position, definitely is going to be a more steep decline. And he's 29 years old as a shortstop. That's not exactly young, but it's not old either.
I mean, age is less of a thing. Novak Djokovic just won a major at 36 in a sport where that used to mean you were a dead person, like literally a fucking corpse.
But if Grissom keeps hitting the way he is, it would be.
Do you sell high early for some kind of insane deadline trade? Because again, this is one thing I read the other day, I think on Sports Talk ATL, which is a great website. They're like, can you imagine? I mean, obviously hindsight is better than 2020 on this. Is fucking 2010, but like, can you imagine the package we would have gotten with one of those guys or both of those guys at the center?
Yeah, like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. Maybe they do that. I mean, you got to think they would have to have Dansby locked down for a 4-year deal before they would consider trading Grissom. But
because the market's going to dictate some of this. If you can't replace him immediately, then one of your biggest strengths becomes one of your biggest holes.
Yeah. And they just moved Grissom up to Double-A. He'll play the rest of the season there. Probably will be in spring training next year.
You would think so, yeah.
We'll see how he hits major league pitching. I mean, the jump from Double-A to the majors is tough for some people. For some people, they actually get better, oddly enough. For some dudes, they start out really well, have a slump, then come back. We've seen a lot of that. Frank Gore did that back in the day. Fucking Austin Riley did it. You're seeing a little bit of it from Harris now. But Grissom is a very powerful and fast as fuck shortstop. It's hard to keep a guy like that down. I mean, he stole 20 bases in 75 games in the minor leagues, which, it's the minor leagues. Pitchers aren't great at holding runners sometimes, catchers or whatever, but he's ceiling wise, he's better than Dansby Swanson. There's no question 100%. About that. It's just a matter of, is he going to be better at the right time, and is how talented he is going to translate to Major League Baseball. We'll see about that.
Does his timeline match up with our timeline? Yeah. And, maybe we could be like the Astros because they don't give a fuck. They let everyone walk.
Yeah.
And then they just replace them. Pena just replaced Correa, and Pena's been great. They didn't give a shit about George Springer leaving. They didn't care about Garrett Cole leaving. They are. They're not even, we talk about the Dodgers always finding crazy people, but no one ever leaves the Dodgers, really. Yeah. Like the Astros just let people, they're like, go, I don't care. And who was the dude who replaced Springer, who's having an elite kind of dark horse MVP year? Kyle Tucker?
Kyle Tucker, yeah. I mean, he was tough in the playoffs last year. That was a tough at bat every time up.
Yeah. They don't care. No. I mean, they don't get, so maybe we take the Astros approach. Certainly we are well aware that Alex Anthopoulos,
he's pretty good at his job, so whatever he does, I'm going to go along with it.
He has my trust until further notice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's
a couple other things to look out for minor league wise. There's a kid, Freddie Tarnok, righty, had some issues in A-ball, and then starting out in Double-A this year, got banged around a little bit, but all of a sudden, the second half of the season, he's rocking like a 1.88 ERA. His whip's super low. And from what I've heard from the scouts, it wasn't that he was getting unlucky before. It said he was doing shit wrong before and he fixed it, which is a much better thing to learn about a young kid like that, not just because he's coachable, but because he's corrected his mechanics now. So doing things quite a bit better and striking out batters at a higher rate, walking him at a lower rate, which means command and all that stuff. Another dude to watch out for is Jared Schuster. He's a lefty. I think he's like 23. Not sure exactly how old he is. He's been pretty good at every level so far. Some of his stats look a little fucked up because he had a couple of bad games. You know what I mean? And that'll happen. But like got off to a slow start in when he got popped up to Double-A last year. But this year, same level, Double-A. Kid's throwing, his whip is .98 as a starter. He's striking out 5 dudes for every one he walks. 2.87 ERA. He's commanding the ball well. He's not giving up a ton of home runs. Very sharp breaking stuff. He's a lefty, which also helps. So we've got these dudes. Toussaint's gone now, but Bryce Elder, Tucker Davidson, a couple of those dudes are still in AAA. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next month or so and see how many. Like I honestly think Bryce Elder should probably get sent away. Not because I don't want him to be a Brave next year and because he's going to be a very good pitcher in Major League Baseball. I think so. But he's not going to get the innings at the Major League level with us right now. So it's going to stunt his career until he's like 27. It's not. I don't think that's a good game plan.
I mean, Atlanta had that problem in the 90s too with, aside from Kevin Millwood, I can't remember a single fucking dude who came up from 96 to 2003.
You just don't get the opportunity at the Major League level to get innings. You know what I mean? And Bryce Elder.
You need to win. You have to win at that when you have the chance to win the World Series every year. You can't. There's only so much experimentation you can afford.
Well, Wainwright's another guy. Everybody knew Wainwright was going to be a very good fucking baseball player, but there was no room for him in our rotations. It was like, all right, fucking trade him.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we had that one back, to be honest. But,
I really fucking wish we had that one back.
Yeah, who knows how that would have gone. But, I think Elder and a couple of those other dudes are probably going to get sent away this year. Elder needs to go to he needs to go to a team like the Cubs or the Indians or somebody that competes but isn't necessarily a buyer at every every fucking trade deadline. They're not a buyer. He needs a team like that where he can develop his skills a little bit, get some experience, and then maybe come back later. But these kids that I was talking about today, I think they might be. I think both of them, Schuster and Tarnok, might actually be on the roster next year. So I just wanted to because they're both. I think they're both on the 40-man. Nope. Tarnock is on the 40-man roster. Schuster is not yet.
Okay.
But they will be, or he will be rather. The end.
Sick. That's all I got for today.
Yep.